there's really no good news in the world at the moment. It's all pretty upsetting. However, not many news stories more upsetting than this. And I suppose in the situation that we find ourselves in when Russia, right? And there might be some of you going, Gibbo, stop going on about Russia. At this moment in time, I can't, because it's dominating everything, right? And I don't think we realise how much the situation is going to affect us. Not just oil and gas, but things like wheat and the number of the levels of production that Russia controls. And even things like oil and gas. People are currently now focused on the price of petrol at the pump. The price of petrol at the pump. But this situation affects everything. It'll affect the cost of food. It'll affect every single product you have, because these things need to be delivered, which again, the trucks have to run. Stuff has to be brought in through freight. All of this adds to cost, and all of this cost is passed on to us, the common man and woman, the mugs. And people might be sitting going, I'm not really getting involved in the Russia situation because it doesn't affect me. Well, it does affect you, and it does affect us all. And this is how it's affecting us, because for the first time in fucking human history, a Greg sausage roll is set to cost more than £1. That's right. So if you're sitting at home going, listen, just let Putin do what he does, man, that doesn't affect us. A sausage roll is going to cost more than £1. And you're telling me that this war isn't affecting you? I mean, I don't know what else I need to say. Imagine a time when a sausage roll for Greg's could cost more than £1. If somebody, when you were a young lad, a whippersnapper, up and down the high street, enjoying a Greg, even when Greg's went through that huge refurbishment, when they tried to turn themselves into some kind of like fancy American diner, and you would go in, and those Greg's workers would be forced, very much like the Russian people, forced to greet you with a smile. When we all know that Greg's staff just want to spit on you. They hate you. But that's why we love Greg's. They hate us. We hate them. We hate ourselves for being there. We all wish we had the kind of money to go to Pret. I mean, they killed a fucking wee lassie on a plane, for God's sake. Sold her a sandwich full of nuts. She exploded in mid-air. And they fuckers are still trading. But we wish they had the money to go to Pret for some fancy Italian sausage roll or a prawn sandwich. We wish we could go there. Would you like a single piece of fruit for £14? I fucking wish I had the money to go to Pret. But I don't. I go to Greg's for a sausage roll and a yum-yum. And a coffee. Some of the worst coffee you'll ever have in your life. But my God, what a strong cup it is. And the pure disdain for humanity that the staff in Greg's have is wonderful. And sometimes I just stand in Greg's in a queue, because there's always a queue, and I look at the people behind the till, and I think, what horror have you gone through in your life that has led you to this point? But even if you could go back 10, 15 years, and you stopped an average person in the street and said, do you know that at one point, soon in the future, a Greg's sausage roll is going to cost more than £1? You would think to yourself, I hope to live to be that age, because you might be thinking, I'll be 110 by that time. No, it's now. It's now. Article again for the Metro. It's the only place to get your news these days. It's bad news for sausage roll devotees. As Greg's has warned, prices could rise for a second time this year due to a soaring staff and ingredient cost. I mean, in the name of fucking God, man. The bakery chain is facing an increase of up to 7% in the name of fuck in its running expenses, and says it can't rule out passing the extra costs on to customers. The looming price hike comes as inflation in the UK hits a record high and the cost of living continues to surge. I mean, it's going to surge through the roof now if a sausage roll better than £1. Profits will also be squeezed by global prices rise as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine supply around a third of the world's wheat export. What did I tell you? And Ukraine is a major supplier of sunflower oil. Greggs has vowed to try and protect its reputation for providing outstanding value for money, but the company said in a statement that rising costs necessitated some price increases which were made at the start of the year, adding further charges are expected to be necessary. Oh my God, man. Oh my God. Oh my God. 2020, year of COVID. 2021, COVID continued. 2022, the rise of the sausage roll. Mr. Whiteside, Greggs CEO, said, we've got no plans to raise prices currently, but obviously what's going on have to remain under review given the way the markets are moving around the world and commodity food prices in particular. If the market allows prices to increase, we will have to pass them on to customers. We will attempt to absorb costs first. If it doesn't, then we won't be able to hold back, he added. The pandemic saw Greggs' profits crumble as it announced its first loss in 36 years, going almost 14 million into the red in 2020 when many branches were forced to close. But it swung back into the black last year, raking in 145.6 million profit before tax. I mean, now listen, I am, in jest, making fun at the, situation of a Greggs sausage roll costing £1, but I'm sure those of you who are educated listeners to the podcast can read between the lines. Because obviously I make fun about a sausage roll costing £1 and we make fun about things like Greggs. But the reality is, and probably a lot of people don't like to admit it. A lot of people don't like to think about it. But Greggs serves a place for many people. It serves a place for most of us where we go in there and we get a cheap coffee, a quick coffee, and maybe a cake or a bun or a sandwich or indeed a sausage roll. But for many people, and that's the worrying thing, for many people across this country, Greggs is possibly their only viable option of a warm lunch. It's the only option they have. For a lot of people, getting a sausage roll or a steak bake or some kind of meal deal out of Greggs is potentially their only option they have because they cannot afford anything else. And we can laugh and we can joke all we want. But at the same time, the other thing that we need to start thinking about, and the other thing that we need to be aware of, is every single company at this moment in time who is raising their prices, they are raising their prices to protect their profit margins. I mean, look at that news story there. 2020, 2 years ago, because of the pandemic, Greggs, according to this article, made its first loss in 36 years. So in 36 years, it has been a profitable company. It's made profit every single year. Now, that is not profit from its sales. That is profit from everything. It's operating costs, it's staffing wages, it's raw ingredients. Every single thing that is involved in maintaining and running that business, it has made a profit on top of that for 36 years. 1 year, 2020, it lost 14 million. Now, 14 million is a huge sum of money. If any of us had 14 million, our lives would change overnight. But then look at the other figures. It swung back into the black 1 year, back into the black, that was an Amy Winehouse song. It swung back into the black 1 year later in 2021. 37 years, 1 year it suffers a loss, 14 million. Then it swings back into profit, and you may be thinking, well, if it lost 14 million, maybe its profit is like maybe 2 million. It's clawed that back. Its profit, 145.6 million. 145.6 million is the profit that it made. So you take off the 14, 141, 140 for easy maths. In 2 years, it's made a profit of 140 million. Now, as its costs rise, I get it. Costs rise, fine. We've talked about wheat, we've talked about oil and gas. But how is it these companies cannot take this profit and just level it out? If you are a company and you are covering all your costs, your operating costs, your staffing costs, everything is covered, and you're making a profit of £100. Still a profit, everything's covered. You're making a profit of 100,000, a million, fine, but a profit of 140 million. And you still have to raise the price of your products that are used, a service that is utilised by the poorest group of people in society. But a profit of 140 million just isn't enough. It isn't enough for some companies to say, well, we're not going to change our pricing. We're not going to put up the cost of petrol. We're not going to put up the cost of diesel. We're not going to put up the cost of food, because we are going to absorb that cost, because we have had 36 years of profiting from our customers. This is the stuff that's getting me. When I'm seeing the cost of things rising, and I am listening to the news, and I'm talking about those costs and that expense being passed to the consumer, even though companies continue to turn a profit. I mean, with news the other day that Shell, good old Shell, has decided to stop buying Russian oil. It's made a commitment. It's like, listen, we're done with it. You know, we've heard it, we've seen all the stories. Wayne's line did. Granny's been shot out of buildings, and we've said enough is enough. And people thought, fucking fair play to Shell. Then it emerges that, of course, a week into the war, and literally 1 week before it made this announcement, Shell had gone out and acquired a vast sum of crude oil from Russia at a knockdown price. It then puts out some wishy-washy statement saying it understands and it sees that that was a bad move and a mistake to make, but it's not giving the oil back. It's not dropping its price. So at the time, there was an oil tankard, full of Russian crude oil. I believe at the time, I want to say it was trading about $120 a barrel. And because the oil is on this tanker, this ship, and it needs to go somewhere, and Shell's argument was that it still had to make the commitment that it had to its suppliers, so it has to get the oil from somewhere, they made a deal with the Russian oil company, and they were given a discount of $20 on a barrel. So not only is Shell making a great deal for that oil, it's making even bigger profit when it sells it, because it's now selling it at the inflated price, even though it's bought at a discounted price. And then once it does that, and it sends it to its petrol station, and it sends it to its pumps, and you go out there and you pay £1.60 for a litre, or whatever the fuck it is you're paying, it then comes out with a statement going like, listen, I know we shouldn't have done that, but it was just too good a price to turn down, you know, and we love a bargain. I mean, fair play to them. So do we. British people love a bargain. It doesn't matter that there's women and children lying dead in the street. We fucking love a bargain. Fucking Greggs, man. A Greggs sausage roll should come with a £5 voucher to get petrol in your motor. And I know, again, I'm going off and I'm ranting here and I'm being a bit daft, because at the end of the day, it's a sausage roll, right? And it probably is worth £1. I mean, the fact that you're buying any hot food for under £1 is mental. But then don't put out a statement and don't give it the big I am about, you know, we've got to absorb these costs as much as we can, and eventually, sadly, we're going to have to pass them on to the customer, when you've been turning a profit of 140 million. You fucking dicks. What else is this? The company also unveiled plans to extend later opening times in 500 shops across the nation. It will start offering delivery from 1,300 stores, up from 1,000. Greggs increased its slice of profits despite the UK food-to-go market remaining depressed and commuter footfall stubbornly below pre-COVID levels, says Ross Hindle, data analyst at Third Bridge. He warned with a low wow factor of its vegan offerings now a distant memory, Greggs needs to provide more innovative and broad meal and drink choices, experts say. Staff who have been with the business for more than 6 years and work 20 hours a week are set to take home an £800 bonus. Good for you. Good for Greggs. I'm sure they can use that bonus money to buy sausage rolls at a discount price. Do Greggs staff get discounts? Do they get a Greggs card? Is a Greggs card a thing? You know, like a black Nando's card? Listen, I love Greggs, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love it, you know? And people who say things like, I mean, what is actually in that sausage roll? Lips and arseholes. I do not care. I love it. It's delicious. It's tasty. But I do get annoyed when certain companies bang on about having to pass these costs onto consumers, onto me and you, when they're turning profits of hundreds of millions of pounds. It just isn't right. You know, and I get that there's not going to be any morals in business. I get that. But it just feels as if everything is going to get to a point where something has to give, man. And we cannot continue to be on this road where we are literally knocking our pan in 5 days a week, and all you have to show at the end of it is that you put everything out to pay bills. It just isn't right, man. It just is not right.